And here to talk about the New Orleans Saints fan, Amanda Gruss.
Thanks for having me.
What made you a fan of the Saints, and what was the big attraction to them, and how are you able to stick with them through thick and thin?
So it's kind of a long story how I became a Saints fan, because I was an Eagles fan, but I am a huge animal rights activist, like huge. All my dogs and animals have been rescues, including my horses. So when the Eagles signed Michael Vick, I said, if he ever becomes a starter, I'm going to be a Saints fan. And basically the day they made him a starter, I dropped them and I said, I cannot support an organization that supports a person like this. And I became a Saints fan. And what drew me to them was Drew Brees, Deuce McAllister, Drew Brees, Joe Horn, those guys, the old school guys, that they're squeaky clean. These are good guys. They do a lot for their community. And I have been a Saints fan since that year. It was the beginning of the 2009 season. And I've stuck with them. I don't want to drop them. And, this has been a tough year for us with Drew Brees' retirement. But just because he's gone, I'm still a Saints fan. I will always be a Saints fan now. And, I've gone to New Orleans to see them, and I'm staying with them forever.
What was that transition like? Why the Saints compared to somebody else? I know you mentioned dropping the Eagles, but why the Saints? Why did they become the next favorite? It could have been anybody else.
Yeah, it was Drew Brees. Drew Brees drew me to them. I've always kind of been a fan of his, like when he was with the Chargers, even when he was at Purdue. I followed him a little bit. I just always liked him. He was kind of always the underdog. He was always that guy that was proving everybody wrong. He was little. He was only 5'11", and he's one of the top passers in the game ever, So somebody like him drew me to the team, and then I fell in love with the team, and I got to know, the rest of the players. I've always been really into fantasy football, so I kind of already knew a lot of the players anyway, but that really drew me to them. And you know what? One of my big things was, where would I want to party if they ever win a Super Bowl? New Orleans.
That makes the most logical sense, especially when it comes to the partying. Wanting to go into this, what's your most memorable Saints moment?
I mean, it's got to be the Super Bowl. I mean, that's number one. Watching that interception on the last play for them to win was it was amazing. And it sucks that I didn't get to be there. That was the end of the first season that I was actually a fan of theirs. It's like I went from 0 to 100 in one season, and it's like my heart just almost exploded when that happened. And just watching that, it was huge. I had never seen anything like that. I never felt anything like that. The way the city blew up after that, and they just had the greatest time afterwards. And after they went through Katrina in 2005, they lost their stadium and they kind of built back up, and to come out on top where nobody really expected them to was huge.
What were your expectations coming into this season? I know 12-4 regular season run last year, falling to Tampa Bay. What was the expectations for the Saints, especially following the announcement of Drew Brees' retirement?
So I didn't really know what to expect. I mean, I had faith in Jameis Winston. I really did. And I know a lot of people didn't. I know that he struggled in Tampa. I know he had some vision issues, and they've all been corrected. But, he got to work under Drew Brees for, 1 or 2 seasons while he was still there. So I had faith in him. I had faith in Sean Payton to groom him to be the next. I mean, nobody will ever be the next Drew Brees, but to take leadership of the team. He's a veteran quarterback. He did well in Tampa, even though he had trouble with interceptions and things like that. So, I mean, I was excited in the beginning of the season. It was, especially after the first game, blowing Green Bay out of the water. At that point, I bought in. I was like, all right, Winston, let's go. Let's do this. Let's make this a season. And it's gotten a little weird from there. So
I know we were going to say that next thing about the point where you felt the Saints could be a contender in the NFC. Was it the blowout of Green Bay, or was it any other particular game that made you think, okay, we can do a lot of damage in the NFC?
I mean, that first game was great, but then after that, they were up and down every week. It was win, lose, win, lose, win, lose. And then Jameis Winston got hurt on Halloween. They still beat Tampa Bay. So, I still had the faith that, okay, without Jameis Winston, we're going to be able to do this. But it's definitely been an up and down season. I mean, we keep losing player after player, quarterback after quarterback. Taysom Hill was out for a while. Trevor Siemian was in. He just didn't do it. Taysom Hill's back. Taysom Hill is a dynamic weapon. But if he's got nobody who's going to catch the ball, it's been a tough season, to say the least. I mean, I'm still there. I'm still there for my team every step of the way, but it's definitely been frustrating after the first few weeks of the season.
Was there a particular game that made you take a little pause and what the Saints could do? Was it the loss to the Giants? Was it barely holding on against the Jaguars? Was it the blowout by the Panthers? I mean, it could, in your mind, what do you feel was the game that made you think these guys might not make it?
The loss to the Giants. The Giants are not a good team. We played down to them. We absolutely played down to them. And, it came down to a field goal. Our kicker, I think, missed 5 field goals that game or something ridiculous like that. We've had so many injuries that it's just, we can't even beat a team like the Giants. Thank God we beat the Jets. I mean, if we hadn't beat the Jets, our season was done. Like, if you can't beat the worst team out there, your season's done. And luckily, we didn't play down to the Jets this weekend. But when they lost to the Giants, I was like, they have to pull themselves together. This is not the team I know. That they are better than this. Sean Payton is a better coach than this. They pulled together a playoff run with Teddy Bridgewater 2 years ago. But this is a team that can piece together wins, and they have not been able to do it. I mean, they were on a 5-game slide. They haven't lost that many games, I think, since 2010 it was, or something like that. So it was definitely worrying seeing them lose to the Giants and then going on that 5-game slide after that. That hurts as a fan. That hurts. And they're all close games. So these are all close games that, aside from the blowout with the Panthers, they were all close. They were all games that could have been won if we had made that field goal, if we had not dropped that pass, if we had played better defense, if we hadn't thrown the interception. So there's so many little things, little pieces of the game that just aren't coming together this year for them.
Looking at the NFC playoffs and the chance that the Saints make it, who do you feel like in the NFC the Saints match up the best with?
I mean, I know it sounds crazy, but I feel like we match up really well with Tampa Bay. We're one of the few teams that have been able to put the rushing yards up against them. And we have now, with Kamara back and Ingram back and Taysom Hill healthy, aside from the broken finger, we have the legs on the ground. And that's how we're going to have to play it against them, because since we are one of the only teams that can put together these rushes against their defense, that's what we have to use. And that's what we have to play to. With Taysom Hill, we're not relying on the air ball. We're just not. He's not as accurate. He's not as good of a passer. He's the ground game. He's the trick guy. So we have to rely on the legs. We have to rely on Kamara. We have to rely on Ingram. All 3 of those guys are going to have to put together a good game for us to beat them this Sunday. And I really do think we play up to them. Whereas sometimes we play down to the teams that aren't quite as good. I feel like we always show up against Tampa Bay. So I'm pulling for them this Sunday, and I'm hoping that they can match up the way I think they can.
And interestingly enough, it looks like Tampa Bay has issues with teams with running quarterbacks and a powerful running game. We saw what happened with Washington as well. And it seems like looks like New Orleans and Washington sort of have the playbook on how to beat Tampa. Keep Tom Brady off the field and just keep making first downs and minimize the turnovers. And if you can just keep them off the field, that's going to be the benefit.
Yeah.
Looking at the other side of the coin in the NFC, who do you not want to see in the playoffs and by the chance the Saints make it? Would it be the Cardinals? Would it be Green Bay? Could it be the Rams? Who would you say? Maybe it's one of the other wild card teams.
Crazy. I don't want to see the Vikings. The Vikings are the Saints' Achilles heel. They knock them out of the playoffs more times than they don't. Even if they have a worse record, they somehow knock them out all the time. So I do not want to see the Vikings. I don't want to see them. I think 3 years in a row, they knocked us out, and they had a worse record. They were a worse team, and we lost to them. So I know they have the same record as us, and I know they're not as powerful a team as they were. I still don't want to see them. They still have Dalvin Cook, who can run all over everybody. So I don't want to see them. I'd rather see Green Bay again. We play up to the better teams. So I want to see the better teams, because I think that the Saints, when they're faced with a stronger team, they play better. And I don't want to get knocked out by the Vikings again. I can't do it.
The next question I'm going to ask, Taysom Hill, especially the tandem of Taysom Hill and Jameis Winston going out with the knee injury. What's the wrinkle that Taysom Hill adds to that offense is much different than what Drew Brees provided?
Well, Taysom Hill is a rushing quarterback. He's got the legs. He's a monster, first of all. He's like 6'5", 250 or something like that. He's fast. He can jump. He can run through those guys that a guy like Drew Brees couldn't. And Winston has legs, but he's not a rushing quarterback. He was still a pocket quarterback. So Taysom Hill brings this other element, a guy who can not only throw the ball, but he can rush the ball. He can catch the ball. He can play a tight end position. He can block. He's going to get in there and he's going to be physical. He's not going to throw the ball and back away. He's going to throw the ball and he's going to be involved, most of the time. We've seen guys like Cam Newton, RG3, who get injured because they're physical quarterbacks. And Taysom Hill has had his share of injuries, but I feel like he brings a dynamic play. And I feel like the players really do trust him. But I think one of the biggest things we're struggling with right now is finding receivers who can catch the ball. I mean, just seeing them play the Jets, Kamara was the only one who was catching the ball. He was the only one. I think Callaway had like one catch and their backup tight end had like one catch. Everything else was Kamara. Like everything was Kamara. The only touchdowns were scored by Kamara and then 2 by Taysom Hill. So really depending on these guys, they have to put the yards in on the ground, or they right now they can't win a game with receivers. They just don't have the hands, which sucks.
Going into the prediction for the Super Bowl, who do you have coming out of the NFC? Who do you have coming out of the AFC? Who wins the game, and what's the final score?
I think out of the AFC, it's going to be Kansas City. They had a rough start, but they've been on fire recently. They've absolutely been running through teams. So I think it's going to be Kansas City out of the AFC. NFC, unfortunately, as much as I hate to say it, I think it's going to be the Bucks. And, I think Mahomes might be able to put another one up this year. I think it's going to be a close game, very offensive game. But, both these teams have pretty good defenses too. So I'm saying Kansas City by 3, like 30-27, something like that. I really think Kansas City is going to pull one out this year. Mahomes was kind of embarrassed last year by Tom Brady, so I think he's going to want to put something together this year and show that he's not a one-timer. He's going to really do it. He's going to beat Tom Brady. He's going to beat a legend, and he's going to get that status for himself.
Makes sense. And I know everybody's been saying it's going to be a close Super Bowl. It's not going to be one of those blowouts. It'll hopefully not be like the Rams-Patriots Super Bowl or even last year's Super Bowl, which was just so disinteresting at a particular point. Maybe it's more like the Niners-Chiefs, hopefully, crossing fingers that is actually exciting, but who knows? As we start to wrap this up, do you have any shout-outs you want to give, anything you want to promote, and how can people reach out to you on social media to talk to you about Saints?
I don't really have any shout-outs. Merry Christmas, everybody. Go Saints. My Instagram is agruss13. You can reach out. Feel free to reach out. Yeah, that's really it. I don't really have much to promote or anything like that. So I'm just excited to see how the rest of the season goes.